Hey everyone, I'm going to go ahead and get started. I have not yet painted my backgrounds. I figured there are a few people who like things to be a little later. And so I know some people are coming right from work and that might give you a minute or two to catch your breath. So I'm going to go ahead and paint my background black. I've got my step-by-step guide here. Today we're doing the Angel Wings Advanced Artistry on the square canvas. And so the first step is just to get the background painted black before we begin. And then we're going to use a stencil with 8 or 16 arms to get started with. Okay, so this is what we're starting with today. You just need the black background, and then I've got my stencil on there. And then I'm going to pour out a little bit of all 4 of my colors for this one. Well, I've got the champagne gold, the oyster beige, there's Portobello, which is the brown color, and then the pearl. Also, I'll make a little disclaimer. My husband is here and he's being noisy in the background. So if you hear clinking and clanging,
hi, dotting friends.
Get out of here. That's what's going on. I tell him to be quiet. He don't be quiet. All right, so we're going to start in the center with a 10 millimeter gold dot.
Tara, which one is the 10 millimeter? I was pouring my paint.
It's the pink one.
Thank you.
I'm going to go around that center dot with a row of smaller dots. So you can see here on the sheet, we end up with 16, but I'm going to put one dot at each line and then one dot in between. And for that color, I'm using the Portobello, which is the brownish taupe color.
Which end of the tool?
The small end, 2.5 millimeters. So I'd like to put my 8 dots on there first, and that helps me with the placement, and then I'll put one in between each. Then for the next step, I'm going to use my 6 millimeter purple tool and the pearl white paint, and I'm going to add 8 dots. I'm going to set up my background so I've got a line going straight up and down, and I'm going to put one of these on each of my north, south, east, and west, and then one in between each of those, so 8 total. Then for the next row, I'm going to use my 8 millimeter tool, that's the blue rod, and the gold paint. And I'm going to add 1 dot in between each of these on the next row. So we'll end up with 8 of those. And then I'm going to continue with the same tool. I'm going to switch to the pearl paint, and I'm going to do another set of the pearl dots, north, south, east, and west, and then in between. So they'll be in between each of these gold. So the same size, 8 millimeters, one dot in between each gold dot. Here I'm on step 3 on the guide, and what I'm going to do is we are eventually going to create these petals around the pearl white dots, but I'm going to put the centers in first. And so I'm going to have a dot of Portobello, a dot of the beige, and then a dot of the Portobello to set the centers. And I'm going to do each of those with my 2.5 millimeter. That's the small end of the green stylus. So it's going to go brown. I'm going to do that all the way around, one brown dot next to the pearl. And then one beige dot, same size. And then one brown dot, same size. So we end up with 3 in a row next to each pearl dot. And then the next step is to walk the dots and make petals around each side. So for this, I'm going to use the blue stylus, the large end, that's 1.5 millimeters. And I'm just going to match the color. So if I've got the Portobello brown, I'm going to do the brown. Where I've got the Oyster beige, I'm going to do the beige, and then back to the Portobello brown. And I'm going to do that around each petal. So this step will take us a while. So I finished my first row of petals. I'm just going to switch colors to the beige and keep on going. When you finish all 3 rows, we are going to make teardrops in between each of these petals with our purple 6mm tool and the gold paint. And so I'm going to place this dot kind of in line with where the edge of my petal is. And I'm going to make that dot, maybe put a little extra paint in there, and then pull it into a teardrop with my pencil or your smallest stylus. We're going to add one of those in between all the way around. Once you finish the teardrops, what we're going to do next is these little four-pointed doohickeys at the end. That's my professional term for those. We're going to use the 3mm tool on the large end, and then the way that I make these, it's just 4 equal-sized dots. So I'm going to dip and dot each time, and they go next to the petals. So I'm going to dip and dot 2 white dots. And I'm pretty close to the edge here, so I got to be careful. I'm going to do all my white dots first, and then I'm going to go through and do the gold dots. So next to each petal, just add 2 3mm white dots. And then once you get all of the white dots done, I'm going to come back through and then add 1 gold dot on each side, so it makes a little grouping of 4. And then we do that all the way around. And if you're following along with me on the guide, we are on the back now on step 7. We are going to add 2 dots and swooshes next to these teardrops. And so the first dot, or the center dots, are both going to be 3mm. So next to each teardrop, I'm going to have a 3mm pearl dot and then a 3mm gold dot. So I'm going to do all the pearl dots first. I find it easier to work with one color all the way around than to redip and wipe every single time. And this is the green stylus on the large end, the 3mm end. And once you get 1 pearl dot all the way around, then you go around with 1 gold dot. Once you have 2 dots next to every teardrop, what we're going to do is add swipes next to those. So I'm going to switch to my blue stylus on the large end. Next to the pearl dots, I'm going to add my beige swipes. So it's 1 swipe on each side, and I use the beige for this. And what I like to do after I go around with all my swipes is just use my pencil tip and see if any of them need to be fixed. Usually I feel like they all need to be fixed, and then when I'm finished, they all look pretty even. So we do a row of beige swipes next to the pearl, and then next to the gold, I'm going to do swishes with the Portobello brown. And then again, I go around and fix any that I think might need a little help. Then the next thing I'm going to do is top dots. Now this design took a little longer than some of the ones that we do, so I think top dots, I'm pretty dry for top dots. I'm going to use my 6mm tool and my pearl paint, and I'm going to put a nice big top dot right in the center. And then close to the center in each of these pearl white dots that we made, I'm going to put 1 gold dot on top of those using the green stylus on the 3mm end. So 1 in each. And then in the last step, you really do want to make sure before you do this that your dots are pretty dry. Mine are okay, so I'm going to demonstrate it, but if you don't feel like yours are dry enough, let it sit a while before you do it because you don't want to ruin, you've just done most of your piece. You don't want to ruin the whole thing. But what we're going to do is, so we've got this row that we just dotted with top dots, that was pearl with gold on top. We've got this row of gold, and what we're going to do is take, oh, you can't even see, I'm holding it off camera. All right, so we've got this row that we just dotted. Then we're going to move on to the next row, which is the gold, and we're going to pull in a white swipe. I'm going to use the large end of my blue tool, and this is why you want it to be dry because it'll pull that gold paint otherwise. And I'm going to go to the center of that dot and just pull it inward. And then, so we just did the gold row. I'm going to move out to the pearl row, and where we've got these larger pearl dots, I'm going to put a line coming down with gold paint. And I can feel my pearl is a little wet there, so be careful. Make sure your dots are dry. And then the last thing I'm going to do is in these teardrops, and mine are probably still a little wet, so it might look a little funky, but I'm just going to demonstrate since I'm here. I'm going to do the same thing, but I'm going to use the white paint on the gold teardrop and pull one line kind of right down the center of that teardrop. And so it's okay not to do it now, but here's the gold and it's got the white swipe, and then the pearl white with the gold swipe, and then the gold teardrop with the pearl swipe. And that's the Advanced Artistry Angel Wings design. I can't wait to see what you guys create. I hope you post a picture for everyone to see, and I will see you next time.